because they had somewhat of a leadership role among many Arab states, and it turns out that they are actually helping Americans kill Arabs in other Arab states. So get ready for a crazy political shuffling with this. I believe it was 2 days ago. All the newspapers knew, but they called it the Arab Peninsula so they wouldn't have to name the country. And then somebody else outed that name. So I believe the LA Times or the New York Times was the first to publish it specifically as Saudi Arabia. And I have a feeling that's going to be a lot of destabilization in the Middle East from that fact being released. Anyway, that's not the point. We, in the 1973s, in response to OPEC, we tried to build political allegiances with the petroleum providers, and it worked for us. But in the meantime, as our economy was grinding to a halt without petroleum, Volvo thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we had more efficient cars? And they developed the LCP 2000, Light Component Project.
What of this are we supposed to write down?
You can see the study goal. It's number 1 that I'm answering in your study guide, and I'm answering all the questions of it. I guess you would have to write down everything I said.
You have to write it down.
I don't care what you write down. If you're not using the study guide, I'm not sure how I can help you. Volvo started the LCP 2000 Lightweight Component Project. It was a car that had very, very, very light parts. So the wheels are like a few pounds instead of like 100. And the engine block was like 95 pounds instead of 800. And just by making a car that was aerodynamic and light, they made the first car to get over 100 miles per gallon in the mid-1970s. And by the way, it was a multi-fuel car. It drove freeway speeds. It was very safe like all other Volvos.
Wouldn't it be a death trap because it's so light and all the cars are so heavy?
Well, perhaps, you have to worry about who's driving tanks on your freeways. Separate question. And so, Volvo produced a total of 6, just to prove that it could be done. But by the time they had the car ready to go to the market, Americans had recovered their supply of petroleum and were purchasing the exact opposite, muscle cars. Very low efficiency cars. After the OPEC embargo, we went, well, we're back to petroleum, so whatever efficiency. And there was no market for the LCP 2000, and the car became a concept that was never mass produced.
What was it like?
I believe it was a lot of aluminum, but I'm sure that they had fancier composites that I don't know about.
The shell was probably a lot of carbon fiber and like the chassis and engine block and stuff, probably a lot of aluminum. It was just like...
I can tell you something. This was a big lesson in 2 ways. First of all, people only want efficiency when gasoline is expensive. And second of all, car companies cannot leave the market. They sell what people want to buy. So when people want big, fancy, powerful, heavy cars, that's what they'll sell us. And when people want high fuel efficiency, that's what they'll sell us. Remember, the Prius had the best year ever when petroleum was most expensive. Car efficiency follows petroleum prices. If we keep petroleum cheap, people don't care about efficiency. When petroleum is expensive, we all want more efficient cars. Big lesson we learned in the 1970s when we made the first car to get 100 miles per gallon, and it never even went to market.
Was it expensive to produce?
I actually wonder about that. I'm sure that it must have been because it didn't have a lot of production, low volume. But I don't know if it was because of its weight that it was expensive.
Seems like a good idea.
I've only got 5 minutes, and I'd like to do a few more study goals. In number 2, it asks you about secret megawatt technologies. In the movie, because it was made in the 80s, they talk about a lot of stuff that by now is commonplace. LEDs, compact fluorescent light bulbs, motion detectors, low flow faucets and shower heads, because you have less water coming out, you have to heat less water. These are all ways to lower domestic energy usage. Number 3, Osage, Iowa, had a really interesting problem. They couldn't afford a new power plant. So they bought an infrared camera, sent like interns to photograph houses at night during winter, and then it cost about $1 a piece to send an infrared photograph to every homeowner. They could go, oh look, all of my heat is leaving through that one window upstairs. Or oh look, I should re-insulate my roofing because all my heat is leaving through the roof. Or, hey Daniel, how come your house is all green and blue but mine's all red and white? I'm losing all the heat. Can you show me what you did? And in a period of a few years, the average home heating cost dropped by about 25%. Not only did they not have to build that extra power plant, they were actually able to lower net energy usage dramatically while population was actually growing, using infrared photos of homes. Finally, number 4, plant fuel is considered solar power because the sunlight is used to build the carbon bonds that we break when we use the plant as an energy source. There's a vocab term that I'd like to remind you of. Sometime in Unit 4, we talked about the carbon cycle. And we talked about old carbon, or lithospheric carbon, or long cycle carbon, as opposed to the current, or young, or short cycle carbon. Here's a way to think about it. You may want to stick around, it might take another minute or so. Remember that when it rains, we're not all going to drown, right? It's not like the earth is going to fill up with water when it rains, because rainfall over here is equal to evaporation over there. No problem. But if we found a bunch of secret underground water and threw it onto the land, then we might actually drown. The same is true of carbon. We have carbon going into the atmosphere here and becoming plants over there, no big deal. The problem with ancient carbon, or long cycle, or lithospheric carbon, is that that hasn't been a part of this balance. It's additional to that balance. So we don't have the biosphere capacity for extra carbon that we're finding underground and returning to the biosphere. The problem with ancient or long cycle carbon. Okay, Jordan, thank you for saying that. Was probably smart. Bye-bye.